Welcome to Ranting and Raving. If this is your first time on the channel or on the podcast, you're probably much more familiar with Adam and Ryan, uh, also known as the hosts of the Saints Twitter podcast, the absolute best Saints podcast out there. That's not up for debate, like it's just a fact. And so they're going to be joining me today. We're going to be talking some Saints football, and the general topic of discussion today is going to be kind of around how we see this season possibly going. We're going to take the optimist viewpoint. We're going to take the pessimist viewpoint. Probably in both viewpoints, there was going to be some clowning on Ruiz, and we're going to have some fun. So, huge thank you to both you guys coming on here. This will be a lot of fun, and I kind of want to just kick things off. Before we start talking about the long form for just the season outlook as a whole. Wanted to get each of you guys' take on just the off season up to this point. They may have one or two moves less, but we kind of know what the team is going to look like. So how are you guys feeling about the roster, at this point? We can go ahead and we can start off with Smokey the Bear.
I mean, before you even get to the roster, you got to talk about the exit of Sean Payton and what that means. And we don't know what that means. Like, the first thought is, look, you're losing one of the best offensive minds in football, one of the best game planners, like game day game planners. There is somebody that understands the weaknesses of an opposing team and how to attack those weaknesses. Somebody that, regardless of what you think about him, you find very few players that just that wouldn't run through a wall for him. You know what I'm saying? I mean, there's Jimmy Graham and, a couple of players that he hurt personally, but that even goes more to show you, like, he hurt players. Like, players are hurt by him when they fall out. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's like a dramatic divorce. So it just goes to show that he really had a talent with connecting with players and getting them motivated to play hard and play passionate. So we're going to find out if Dennis Allen has that in him, and that's just the non-X and O part of it. We'll see how this goes as far as offense. They decided to kind of keep everything the same. They talked Pete Carmichael into coming back. Got rid of Curtis Johnson as a wide receiver coach. But he was an offensive, he was like an offensive coach, but he still worked with wide receivers. Yeah. So they're just going to try to run it back, with that coaching staff. And we'll see, man. Like, it doesn't necessarily excite me. I kind of wanted them to bring in some more new blood. And I think they did, dibble and dab. I think they brought in a coach from, I can't remember where, I think Auburn, to work on offense. I think he worked at Auburn. I think he was also with the Lions. Can't remember his name. So, we'll see.
Either. And I know they brought in a new wide receiver coach, a dude from Tennessee.
Mm-hmm. So we'll see how that goes. And as far as the roster, it started off scary, bro, because, first you lose, like, two huge talents in Teron Armstead and Marcus Williams. Like, these are all Pro Bowl level talents that exited the building, and weren't really replaced. They tried to replace Marcus Williams with, like, a collection of other guys that kind of hopefully form like Voltron and become like as good a player as Marcus Williams. And, on Teron Armstead, they drafted Trevor Penning. They got Hurst in the building. So it's just kind of like, with Teron Armstead, I think they saw with all the injuries, they've played like half their games the past, 8 years without Teron Armstead. So I think they kind of saw we could survive without him.
Yeah.
But they're still a top talented player when he's healthy. And, free agency started off slow. You lost some players. Then they bring in, kind of low-key free agents to do street from San Francisco. You bring in Marcus May, should be a solid player, but, he's coming off an Achilles injury. A lot of, goodwill shopping, as Adam likes to say. So I don't know, man. Now then the draft came, and that was just kind of like that shot in the arm because we've all been screaming for offense. They draft Chris Olave out of Ohio State. They draft another cornerback. They signed Tyrann Mathieu, which I think, I think everybody on Saints Twitter was just happy about that.
Broke NFL.com.
Broke NFL.com. It was crazy. It was crazy, but I loved it. I loved that move. I think it just adds if you're going to be a defensive-led team, be a defensive-led team. That's just what I feel. Yeah. So even though, it might not get you far in the NFL today, but if you're going to do it, do it. You know what I'm saying? And try to be the best defense you can. And I think Tyrann Mathieu can do that. So, I give this kind of offseason like a kind of a C+. Could be better. It's kind of wait and see. Like, you go grab a Jarvis Landry maybe. Then we're going more into like a B+, But I give it a C+. And, we can't forget, they went into this offseason $70 million above the cap.
Yep.
Like, that's like, it's ridiculous. Like, we've all read it, and we knew they'll be able to take care of it. But the way they did it is still kind of amazing, man. Like,
Goodell has nightmares about Harley.
Bruh. Like, I'm waiting on a rule. Like, there's going to be a rule coming at some point. Like, something got to change. They're going to do something about, like, the percent you could put towards the future or some shit. It's going to be some shit, bro.
And they can't even legislate out the ghost years now because so many other teams are doing it that other owners will get
exactly
back. So he can't even put it on the Saints for that.
Exactly. So,
yeah. So I think Ryan hit on a lot of them. Well, first, before even going into, I think I just wanted to give shout out to Brian for the kind words for our podcast that we've been doing for over a year, over 2 years now. The way it's grown since we've started has been tremendous, and so I don't know if we see ourselves as the best Saints podcast out there. We just try to just record and put out good content and just talking about this team and their decisions.
That's why you're the best.
Decisions that they're big. So at all the points that Ryan made, like, I don't want to like remiss them of how crazy close it was being to like there not being the Saints Twitter podcast anymore, right? Like the whole pursuit of Deshaun Watson, like it didn't happen, but the reason it didn't happen, basically is that Deshaun Watson.
The Saints had nothing to do with it not happening.
Exactly, they had nothing to do with it not happening. The only thing it had to do with it not happening is that they wouldn't guarantee the contract just like the Falcons wouldn't, and they wouldn't guarantee it at the per year level that him and his agent was asking for.
Thank God for the Browns.
Had it not been for that, who knows? But all that, so that's still a big thing that still kind of keeps me from getting like super excited about the team again. I think the draft and drafting Chris Olave, while super exciting, like in the moment, like that honeymoon period for me is kind of passed, and I'm kind of like, okay. And it's, I think Ryan and I have continued to ask this question, is just like what the vision is of this team. And I'll give the Saints some form of credit. I believe that they've tried to answer that or shown the fans of what the vision is, and that they still see themselves as a team that can contend in the NFC, can be a playoff team. And then once you're in the playoffs at that point, it's just, it's just luck, and there's a lot of things that go into it. And so I know that there's a lot of hand wringing of like how they did the deal with the Eagles, even though the Eagles like reached out to the Saints first. Like the Saints didn't even ask them for the deal. The Eagles reached out for the draft trade where they got 16 and 19, in terms of like assets going out. It's a team that believes that they can contend. I think at least they acknowledged the problem that there was at wide receiver, because that's something that Ryan and I have just been on about for years, almost since as long as we've been doing the podcast, like 2+ years. Like we've been like, can we get a fucking first round young wide receiver? I think last year's season like exacerbated, like Dennis Allen was like, God damn, like these dudes are trash. Like,
Crawley was locking up all the Saints receivers in
training camp.
And we're like, oh, Crawley Clamps is back. No, they're trash.
Although he's
trash, bro.
Crawley did have some good snaps to the regular season, though. Just saying.
I'm saying Crawley sucks. I'm just saying.
He's like a low level, like below average cornerback that if in a pinch if you have to start, maybe he'll do okay.
He's PJ Williams of the outside.
No, he's not. Don't disrespect PJ's play.
Remember what happened when they would put PJ in the slot? He was solid and would get beat.
Yeah, PJ's fine. The last 2 seasons of PJ has been great. Anyway, I'm just saying that in regards to they acknowledged what the problem was, and for that I give them credit. I think a lot of it too, as Ryan kind of said, it really hinges on Dennis Allen, because we don't know what the Dennis Allen experience, 2.0 as a head coach is going to be. I think with Sean Payton, you could bank on the Saints at head coach. The Saints win an extra 1 to 2 games just by him being the coach. Now that that's not in play, how are you going to get those extra 1 to 2 games? Is it going to be by like the roster is overall better? Is it just going to be a fully healthy team? Those are like the things that really kind of stick out to me. I would say for me as a fan, I'd give them like a solid C, and also kind of what Ryan said as well is that, the offseason isn't over per se. They still can add some weapons, whether it be at wide receiver or tight end. So if they were to, or running back, which is a desperate need. So if they were to get 1 to 2 weapons, that can definitely, bump the grade up for their offseason.
So I'm mostly, I think I agree with pretty much everything you guys said, and it'll set the table nicely for kind of what we'll get into next. I think probably the only thing I would say my perspective is a little bit different. I give the offseason a little bit higher of a grade, but it's not because I disagree with how you guys see the moves themselves. It's actually specific for me to 2 things, and it kind of comes to the whole vision thing. I'm a huge big picture guy. If I don't see, the management of assets and the ability to adjust yourself depending on the performance of the players, of the assets, etc., like that's bad management, and it'll drive me nuts. And really everything since 2018 happened has been bad management. They got screwed, and everything was about trying to recapture that moment instead of addressing the issues, which actually would have helped you recapture the moment. The reason I give it a B+, and the reason I do that is everything that they have done sets them up where they basically get 2 swings at being able to become contenders again. If Jameis, he doesn't have to be a great quarterback. He just has to be good. He doesn't even have to be super consistent. He just can't be a disaster. If Jameis can be that guy, and the defense can be really good, like elite game-changing defenses, there's 1 or 2 a decade. The elite defense, the word elite gets used way too often in sports, and I reserve it for where it's deserved, or at least I try to. Like those special units, the 15 Broncos, I think it was the 2012, or maybe it was the 13 Seahawks, really both. 2000. There's only a few of those defenses that can take a terrible team to the Super Bowl. And the same thing with offenses. So like for me, it's the reason I give it a higher grade is what I liked the most about the Philly trade is if you look at the timeline of the assets in combination with what you guys mentioned earlier as far as the cap, they're in a position where they're going to have the ability to move as much cap as they want over the next couple of years. So they can, if they go, okay, we're a really good team, Jameis is fine, but we need ABC on this roster, they can take as big a swing as they want to add ABC. And it'll be fine. It's not going to tank their next 5 years, especially because new TV money is going to come in. Like that schedule lines up. So they have the ability to take advantage. And if it doesn't work out, they really only gave up assets from this year and next year. And at the end of Jameis's 2 years, they have all of the assets in the world. Plus, they still will have relatively young players on deals. Like they have the ability to move guys. They'll be able to take one last swing at getting a better quarterback and being able to contend in that window. So they have the potential for a 5 to 8 year window. If Jameis works out, it's great. You're fine. But they at least secured the ability to take 2 swings without going all in and being crippled if something doesn't work out. And I do want to I give them a little bit more credit for resetting the roster, fixing some of the holes, but also giving themselves the ability to, if this doesn't work out, they can actually address it pretty quickly without having to, do what they had to do with Gillette and, 2015 and just tank the entire roster, throw everything out, detonate their entire cap, and be a terrible team for 3 years, until the 2017 draft kind of turned everything around. They're not in that position this time, so I think they deserve credit for that. Other than that, I agree with absolutely everything you guys said. And I'll kind of just use that as an opportunity to segue into this. I always like to end on a happy note, so I figured, we'll get to Optimus second, and let's kind of segue this into the pessimist view of the roster. And Ryan, you actually kind of started with what I think is the single most important variable. Again, we're not going to talk about injuries because that tanks anybody's season anywhere. But you brought up the transition from Sean Payton to Dennis Allen. So I think that's a great place to start if we're talking about the pessimistic view. How do you think this season goes if, like, just starting from the DA perspective, if he's not a quote unquote leader of men and can't rally the team, or what I thought was really the most important thing that you pointed out that doesn't get talked about with the Sean stuff, a game planner and an in-game adjustment guy. If that isn't up to snuff, feel free to take it from there. How do you see that going for this team?
I don't know, man, but it could be a disaster. Like, what if, for whatever reason, they start, 0-4? You know what I'm saying? How do the players react? How do the veteran players react? How do the young players react? You know what I'm saying? Like, Sean Payton was such a respected veteran presence. Dudes kind of held their line. They didn't talk to the media and all that. Will DA demand that type of respect? I don't know. Like, I just don't know, man. And so he can go really bad if they don't start, if they start like on a losing streak or something, it's going to be finger pointing, bro, And, Sean Payton had a good way of kind of zigging where others would zag. So, like, if things were really depressing, he would be lighter and kind of, try to not, won't be hard on the players and stuff like that. So we'll see how DA handles it. You know what I'm saying? Like, we'll see how he approaches, running the team, because it's just different, man. You never know. Running a defense is completely different from running a team. You know what I'm saying? But it could be bad if things don't go well early. And quite honestly, there's a good possibility things won't go well early. Even on defense, bro. Like, you talk about a completely rebuilt secondary outside of, Marshawn Lattimore, and the cornerbacks, CD Deuce. But as far as the back end, Tyrann Mathieu, Marcus May. Marcus May's going to be suspended. So who you going to have back there? You got PJ Williams. It's probably going to be some busted coverages, some finger pointing. So things.
Or just too slow to get there.
are just too slow to get there. Like the speed, like, bro, like things could be really crazy early, man. So how resilient this team is to be able to hold on, and they really are a resilient team. If you look at them last year, the shit they dealt with, like
It was insane that they won 9 games with that.
It was
BS.
insane, bro. Like honestly, to do like the COVID, the hurricane, the injuries, the questions
That
at
was a 4-win
quarterback,
team.
it was unbelievable. It was unbelievable. So do they still have that in them under DA? Like that's just a question I have. I can't answer it.
Right.
But it could go bad. You know what I'm saying? Like it wouldn't shock me at all if shit like went really bad.
So you mentioned the losing early and especially just the turnover in the secondary. Is there anything you want to like as far as like what could lead to, not starting off with a strong record? Is there anything that kind of sticks out to you right away, Adam?
I don't know if anything sticks out to me. I think if we're just speaking worst case scenario, I think worst case scenario would be for this team is, and I'm not saying that obviously we wish this happened, but we're just speaking worst case. What if some of the reason why Jameis, who played, more controlled last year under Sean Payton, was able to kind of play with less, reckless abandon was because Sean Payton was there. And then you remove him, and now you have Pete Carmichael trying to coach up Jameis. What if Jameis is just how Jameis was in his last year in Tampa Bay, and you have him making irrational throws or bad throws? And I think the big thing for me is twofold. If Jameis doesn't have a good season, and let's say hypothetically Kenny Pickett, who was there at 19, they passed on him and fell to Pittsburgh, and let's say Kenny Pickett goes off and has like a great rookie season or becomes like a great franchise quarterback, and the Saints are having like a 5 to 7 win record and they don't have a first round pick next year, that is dark. Like that is like pessimistic in terms of like them potentially having a top 10, top 5 pick, and then Philadelphia's picking that high, and maybe Philadelphia realizes that Jalen Hurts
They also don't have a quarterback.
Maybe Jalen Hurts isn't the guy, and they use that top 5 pick or whatever to draft their quarterback of the future. Like that to me is the darkest of times. And this is not a dig on Jameis, but like I think the big thing is like the book is still completely like no one knows what Jameis is. Like the huge part of Saints Twitter that is like a Jameis cult, and then there's other parts of Saints Twitter where it's just like Jameis naysayers. Like I think Ryan and I are like right in the middle where we recognize like at times he played well last season, other times he didn't. Like that some of it was a function of just having bad weapons, but some of the function was that he just made some bad throws. He was Jameis, and
God's playing, baby. God's playing.
and he was inaccurate. So I think to me, just the whole crux of the future of this team is the whole Jameis thing. Because if he's not the answer, while yes, you've gotten younger, you got Olave, you got Penning, but if you're out of a first round pick next season, it's not impossible to find your quarterback of the future. Let's say there's a quarterback out there like a vet who wants to be traded. That's good. Like there's ways to get that guy, but
go get Gardner Minshew.
They should.
I'm like half kidding, but I'm only half kidding.
But we got the red rifle, I guess. So who knows? I don't know. But like to me, that's the most pessimistic thing is that the Saints are a 5 to 7 win team. They have a top 10 pick, top 5 pick in the draft, and that pick is going to Philadelphia. That's dark.
I think that is probably the worst case scenario. And the reality is it's on the table. Like fans that are pretending it's not, like that's great. But to me, like I have no idea if you guys play this at all, but like, gotcha games are obviously very popular. Loot boxes aren't new in video games in general. So I'm just going to use that as kind of the metaphor for Jameis here. To me, he's a loot box, and it's great. Yeah, you could get, the shiny 5-star, whatever it is, super rare item. Great. That's awesome. And he could be that. Jameis has that level of talent. And, you know, we remember Drew as, you know, the most recent memory we have of Drew was this hyper efficient quarterback who was also passing for 3,000 yards a season, by the way, like his last couple of years. But we forget that prior to 2017, Drew only had 6 years with less than 15 interceptions. Drew was not Tom Brady, who will not take a risk ever. Like that's just part of who he is as a quarterback.
No question.
YOLO Drew was a trending hashtag all the time. And I'm not comparing Jameis to Drew, because Drew's one of the 6 or 7 absolute greatest quarterbacks ever, period. If he's not on that list for you, like, I don't respect your football opinion. But like, you can have a very successful quarterback who takes risks and makes dumb plays. It's the consistency of the dumb plays, and can you make enough consistent good plays to still be on target, to not derail the offense, to not make your teammates lose trust in you, to not let the opposing side gain confidence and then start dictating. Like, those are all those hidden components of the difference between being an aggressive playmaker and a disaster. And I know Jameis Winston's nickname in college was Famous Jameis, and when I watched him in college, I called him Brainless Jameis. And it was because, like, he could make incredible plays, and then 2 plays later, you're going, dude, why?
Yeah.
And for me, I think you summed it up well. Like, it really a lot comes down to, does he have that under control? Like, he doesn't need to be Drew those last couple of years. He can do dumb plays. He just can't do them on the regular. But the other 2 things for me that I think are going to have a huge impact, other than obviously Jameis, like that's the no duh. As far as this team reaching its worst case scenario, there's 2 other things for me. Again, we're not talking about health for those watching, so that's again a no duh. One is the defensive line. So outside of health, which with 2 of the guys on that unit is kind of that's an objective question. That's not really a oh well, yeah, if that happened, well, it seems to happen every year. It's Haley's Comet, right on schedule. But it's, if Cam is, and he's really the guy on the D line I'm focusing on. If Cam Jordan is the guy he was the last quarter of last season, because he hasn't been the same player since he tore that quad, which for the type of player he is, his body type, his age, it makes sense to take a couple of years and really come back to being yourself, especially because he was never like a twitched up super athlete. Cam's a hand fighting leverage guy. He's a power guy. You need that leg drive. And the hope is that last quarter of last year where Cam looked like Cam again and looked like a near dominant, hyper impactful player in the run and the pass. Well, if that was the last gasp of the apex of a great player's career, if the Cam of the first half to 3/4 of last year is now regular Cam, this defense is in huge trouble, because not only are you changing out the guys in the secondary, especially at the safety positions, you just lost your big mistake eraser in Marcus Williams. Because as much as fans focus on the few plays where it'd be Marcus, trailing a play, and they don't realize Marcus should never have been in the camera on that play. You think it's his fault. Most safeties can't get in the camera shot. Mm-hmm. What they don't see is the dozens of plays that never happened because the quarterback saw him and went, no, not trying that. He'll catch it. Because it wasn't just the range, it was the ball skills. You lose him.
You can see that. You can see that on tape too.
Yeah, absolutely.
You can see the quarterback clutch.
Like,
you're like, damn.
No. It's just one of those. It's like having a loose handle with Drew Holiday guarding you. I use basketball analogies a lot because that's my background. But like, it's just you see it with certain guys where players, once they know what the guy is, go, no, I'm not trying that, because it's just dumb. You don't have that great eraser. You're replacing it with, a guy who is, he's still a very good player, but he's a declining player in Honey Badger. A guy coming off an Achilles who's probably going to also have a suspension. You've got this, talented kid in Justin Evans who hasn't done anything in the league because he's been hurt. Sorensen, who's trash.
Rash.
PJ Williams, I love his instincts, and I think he projects much better as a safety than he did as a corner. And frankly, that was what people thought of him coming into out of the draft. But he doesn't have that speed and range. So like, I think if they're going to play a lot more 2 deep, they're going to be a lot more versatile. They're going to do a lot more movement, and all of that makes a ton of sense if your defensive line performs.
Yes.
If the defensive line spends more time going backwards or running in the mud than they do creating pressure, not just getting sacks, but creating pressure, moving the quarterback off his spot, making him do these, they're going to be in real fucking trouble, because that shutdown of Tom Brady, that happened because the defensive line was in his lap all game.
Okay.
The great games they had last year where the defense was carrying them, they got pressured. And if they can't get that, whether, who first, Onion, all of those guys, like all of those players can be part of a productive unit. The guy with the crazy last name that I'm not even going to try to say that starts with a K, Pasanya. Yeah, I'm not. No, I can't do it.
Tano. Just call him Tano.
Tano. We're just calling him Tano. Like he was playing really well last year. When he went out, I thought it impacted the unit. Like,
He was.
You have a great collection, but to me,
Yeah.
everything comes down to Cam, because Cam's ability to be a productive player when he is left one-on-one, and B, because of that production, to force teams to double him. I honestly think everything for the defense comes down to that. The offense, it's really two things to me. It's Jameis, which I think you guys covered perfectly, and it's Mike. Mike is not going
Mike
to
is
be
huge.
2019 Mike. Like
Huge.
that's
Huge.
not even a dig on Mike. Like, I had fun years ago with calling him tier 2, and people got mad because they don't understand the concept of levels. That's fine. But like, 2019 was a historic season. He's not going to be a historic player coming off of this type of injury, especially when he's not a particularly explosive guy in the first place. The question for me is, can Mike be at or above the level Anquan Boldin was, in the second half of his career, when he was in Baltimore, when he was in San Francisco? If that's Mike's floor, I think the offense will be fine. I'm not going to say it'll be good. I don't know if it'll be great, but it'll be fine, because if he can at least be an Anquan Boldin type guy and just move the chains, that element is something. Number one, Jameis has never had ever. He had Mike Evans, and Mike Evans is an impactful player, but Mike Evans has never been a move the chains guy. He's always been a big play receiver. He was in college, has been in the pros. Godwin is that guy, and Godwin helped him, but Godwin is still not really a possession receiver. Mike, if that's his floor, I feel a lot more confident about this offense. But if Mike's not that guy, obviously, again, we're not talking injuries, because if he's not on the field, and they're in big fucking trouble. You almost have to sign Jarvis as Mike insurance, honestly, is my opinion. But if Mike is on the field and he can't be that guy, if he can't get separation anymore, if that 4.5 40 is now a 4.8 40, and that quickness that he used and those violent cuts to create the separation so that he's constantly open, if that's gone, I mean, he's Treadwell. He's a big body wide receiver with nice hands who can't get open and can't do shit. Like, I think he'll be better than Treadwell, but the gap becomes much, much more narrow if he loses his ability to plant and cut, because that's really what makes Mike special. Other than the route running, the attention to detail, the hard work, like all of that counts, but just physically, his ability to plant and cut is what allows him to have success in the NFL. And if that's gone or even significantly diminished, like, this is that now you've got Jameis pressing, and when he presses, everything you guys said pops up. So, like, for me, that's my worst case. If Cam isn't Cam and Mike isn't at least Anquan Bolden tier Mike, I don't see a path to success for the offense or the defense. And this is Philly gambled and they came up all sevens. It'll be really, really bad.
No, because the Mike MT thing is so huge because the Chris Olave pick works with MT. You know what I'm saying? But you take MT out the mix, then it's like, you know what I'm saying? Like it's
Back to square one, bro.
Back to square one. Like,
bad.
you know, like so that he is huge, man. And I'm still of the opinion, like until I see Mike Thomas, I'm like, I gotta see him.
Mike is the mascot for ghost years right now.
Show me him running one route. Show me one, bro. I haven't seen it. Just one on sand, on the beach, whatever. I ain't seen one route, bro. So whatever, man. Like I hope he comes back. I hope he comes back strong. But even, Dennis Allen said on Rich Eisen podcast that, he's still working back from his injury, bro.
Yes.
And how much is that coach speak? Because,
I don't know.
That's the question. It's a big fucking question.
I don't think Dennis Allen knows. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, he has to wait and see, like, what is this going to be? And we're going to find out, like, mini camp is this weekend, or it's rookie mini camp is this weekend, but then you're going to have, normal mini camp. And that's going to tell a story where MT is at. Is he jogging on the sideline and working out with the trainer?
Got the Jarris Bud hoodie on.
Jarris Bud hoodie? That's going to be the question, bro.
Mr. Darkside.
Another thing you brought up that I find interesting, you talk about Cam. So I'm not so worried about Cam Newton because
I'm not worried about
Cam Newton.
Yeah, he out the league. He got terrible hair and bad fashion.
Cam Jordan, motherfucker. Cam Jordan.
Talking reckless about women.
I'm drinking, man. I'm not worried about Cam Jordan so much as I'm worried about the people opposite him.
There you go.
Because
that's what it is.
Because there was a huge correlation when Marcus Davenport came back strong, then you starting to see Cam Jordan dominate. Because Cam Jordan at this point in his career, he's just not going, he can't be the guy, like the only guy on the D line. He can't do that. He has to, like, you can't, like, if teams decide to push coverage towards his way and stuff like that, he's not going to win. Because even when, in the first, half of the season last year, you could see him so close, but just wasn't there to make the plays. But then when MD came back and Marcus Davenport really started showing up and being the guy who we think he can be, then Cam Jordan started going off. You know what I'm saying? Then he had his opportunities. So I think it's just so, like you said, they got such a large collection of players. They don't have that one guy, but they have such a large collection of guys that can do all kinds of different things.
It's like the 2015 Warriors.
Exactly. Like if they could put
a couple
it all
of stars,
together,
but whatever type of ball you want to play, we got somebody that can do that.
That's why I'm like, man, like Akeem Hicks still out there. Like, go get him.
Would be
Go
interesting.
get him, even if it's just 35, 40 snaps a game. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, just get so you can have everybody get one-on-one and win their matchups. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
And that'll be the key. That'll be the key right there.
No doubt.
I agree with Ryan that I think the defense and the success of the defense is really going to be predicated on, one, can Marcus Davenport stay healthy, which is a huge question. I know you're not talking about injuries, but like that's part of his. Like,
for him, I think we can make an exception.
Yeah, like it's just part of his. It's part of his story. And two, like what is Peyton Turner? Like no one knows
who is Peyton Turner.
Who is Peyton Turner? So if
smiling ass nigga, man.
If in theory he's 70 to 80% of the player that the Saints envisioned when they drafted, they're essentially getting 3 first-round picks this year, right? Because he played like 3 games and then we didn't fucking see him.
Olave, him, and Mike.
Yeah, I mean they're just crucial by just specifically staying with the defense.
Yep.
That's to me, that's predicated on Peyton Turner's predicated on Marcus Davenport. I mean, let's not forget Marcus Davenport is playing on like this is a contract season for him.
Oh, this is it. This
This is it. So, you know, he could be another situation like Trey Hendrickson where he balls out, or if he doesn't have like a great, overwhelming, you know, season on his 5th-year tag, like the Saints aren't begrudged to bring him back because some teams.
Well,
gonna
and
pay
if
him.
he has an okay year and Peyton Turner starts to turn it on towards the end of the year, it's like, well, Marcus, go get some money over that way, and we're just going to stick with this guy for the next several years and let him be cheap talent.
Yep. Essentially. Yep.
Yeah. I mean, so that actually really nicely transitions into the much more fun part of the discussion. So kind of going towards the optimist side, since we're on the D line, I kind of want to start there, and we can kind of work our way throughout the roster and then, you know, obviously talk the team as a whole. Because I'm going to have a wild hot take at the end for the best case scenario. But when I look at the defensive line, the best case scenario for me happens over the next 2 years. So obviously health is a part of it, especially with Marcus. And he's kind of earned a name now, so, you know, he can be Marcus. Obviously the best version of him, he's a flat out dominant player, and he is one of the hardest hitting guys I've seen.
Oof.
When he hits quarterbacks, you just see them go.
Ooh.
It's just like, oh, that's why I played basketball. Like, no. That dude just explodes people. And not just quarterback. When he hits offensive linemen sometimes, like that man has people like getting just, I'm sure, heckled in the film room on some of the plays he makes. If he can be out there consistently and he can bottle that shit, he doesn't have to make 20 plays a game. He needs to make 5. He can be an average player as long as he's average, like just fine. If he has 5 special plays a game, he's going to get just generational money thrown at him because of his talent, his ability.
Yeah.
If Peyton Turner also can earn his name and be just a productive player, doesn't have to be a star, but a productive, valuable, impactful 3-down defensive end, what it really lets you do, and what this is why this is my best case scenario, is it lets you move Cam inside. And Cam next to Onyemata with those two on the outsides, and Marcus has some speed, and Peyton Turner has some speed. They are quicker guys, even though they're big, than Cam. But you look at those 4 guys on the defensive line, and the stunts, the actions that they can run, and just the havoc that's going to create for offenses. To me, that's the best case scenario, because there's just so much you can do, and every single guy is a problem one-on-one. Every single guy can stop the run, and every single guy can affect the quarterback. In that scenario, I don't care, but I almost don't care what happens at the safety position, because in that scenario, the safeties just aren't going to be involved that often. And that means the safeties have a lot more opportunities to go after batted balls. You know, Honey Badger, who's a player, when he's special, it's instinct. That's what has always made him special, is that ability to just see a play about to happen and go, my ball, and just take it. And that anticipation only actually manifests itself on the field of play when you create opportunities. And a D line that creates havoc creates those opportunities. Like, he could have I won't say his name, but another safety had a crazy impactful year with a shit ton of picks. And I don't think he'll be making people shakes. There won't be any Cosby action, but Tyron has that skill set. He has the ability to take the ball. He has the ability to see the play about to happen and crash before the play happens so that he's in the right place at the right time. But you have to create the opportunities. Otherwise, your playmaker isn't making plays. A read and react player can't react if there's nothing to react to. And so, for me, on the defensive side, everything really comes down to the defensive line. And if those guys, they don't have to be superstars. They just have to perform to a reasonable expectation of their abilities. And this unit could be special. That's my optimist view of the defense. What do you guys think?
Well, I mean, I agree with you. I think that's a good optimist view. One of my optimistic takes is like I'm hoping for. It won't happen, but what I would love to see is come preseason, Peyton Turner and 2 firsts are just dominating. Because Cam Jordan doesn't play in preseason games for the most part. He's a vet. So you're going to get an opportunity for Peyton Turner and Davenport to really shine. And both of them going off. Peyton Turner turns the corner. He's showing that he could be like a number 1 pass rusher. And, they start the season. They're trying to figure out who to play. Do you play Peyton Turner? Do you play Davenport? And then, somebody says, hey, we'll give you a first-round pick for Marcus Davenport, Maybe it's the Rams. Maybe it's the Rams, maybe it's the Bills or the Chiefs. I don't think the Chiefs would. Somebody offers a first-round pick. Maybe the Patriots.
Maybe Pittsburgh can part with one of those 87 wide receivers they got.
Maybe Pittsburgh holler like, hey, we feel like we're close. And, man, like that would be the perfect time to get rid of Davenport. Not that I want to get rid of him, especially if he's like playing well, but he's on a 50 option. Like there's nothing keeping him here. So like what smart teams usually do is they trade players that's on the last year of their contract that you don't have a possibility of signing. Just like we let Trigger Trey go for nothing. You know what I'm saying?
Nothing, bro.
Nothing, man. And he's dominating for another team. So I would love to see the Saints just be smart. And if they can, try to play 2 firsts into a first or a second round pick. But obviously that would depend on Peyton Turner being a good player.
I hadn't even thought of that. I love that idea.
That's like just my optimistic, like that would just be, I'm like, yes. Like that'd be so dope because they'll have the first round
then
pick.
2 firsts would be 1 first.
Or he would be 3 firsts.
There you go.
Like Brandon Cooks.
Yeah, he would be 3 firsts.
No, yeah, Brandon Cooks was me first.
Yeah, he was. I mean, Ryan and I on the pod have talked about not so much recently, but like we've discussed the idea of Marcus Davenport potentially, being traded to another team, and it makes sense. Pass rushers in the league always have value. He's young. He's had footage and snaps where he's looked dominant at times, and you know how teams are. I could see a team just talking themselves into like he's like gonna be our stud pass rusher. And
send teams that clip from him hitting Alex Smith.
That's it. Just on repeat.
Just loop it.
Just over and over.
How much?
But for the optimistic point of view for the team, this team defensively, and I really wish that they just bring back Quan, and if Ryan said, if you're gonna be if you're gonna be a defensive team, like just fucking go all in. But this team defensively easily could be a top 3, top 5 defense in the league, and it's not even particularly close. There are some things like it's not going to be easy just because the continuity is no longer there, and that's a huge thing, especially in the secondary. As Ryan brought up, I'm going to be really interested to see in the preseason.
Yeah.
And again, vets don't play a lot in the preseason, but like that 3rd preseason game with most of the starters out there, I want to see like what's happening communication wise. In the secondary, because I think that's
we saw it last year, like in the preseason. The defense was ready. It was like Let's go.
Beautiful.
If we see Sorensen out there in the preseason, Adam, I know you're going to be queuing up Mina Kimes for those tweets.
It better be in the fourth quarter. It better be fourth quarter shit.
With that crying cat.
The Daniel Sorensen Mina Kimes meme. She didn't make the meme, but she like it. So
but she kept tweeting it out.
It is by far one of the most fucking hilarious memes that makes me laugh every fucking time I see it.
Every time.
It's so on point. But this defense can carry the team to quite a few wins.
Yeah.
Just with defense alone. So I have a lot of optimism for the defense. I think it could be better. You know, adding a defensive tackle like Akeem Hicks, bringing back Quan. Like if you're gonna hang your hat on defense, like truly be an elite defense. But all the pieces are in place. But it's also gonna be interesting too, because like Ryan alluded to it, like Dennis Allen's like the head coach. Like he can't be spending the entire game week thinking about the defensive plan. He's gonna have input, of course, but he has to think about.
He's got 2 defensive coordinators, so he better be able to allocate those hours.
But the defense is his baby. Like he's not just gonna completely let Chris Richard and Ryan Nielsen just make the plan like that. No. Like he's gonna have his fingerprints on it. So I think that's a big thing as well.
And that's another question. Like, is he gonna empower Chris Richard and Ryan Nielsen to make that their baby? Or is he gonna be micromanaging and kind of is he gonna be what Sean Payton was to defense? You know what I'm saying? Like where he just when Greg Williams just let Greg Williams run the defense. Like run your defense, bro. I'm gonna hold it down on offense over here. Is he gonna do that? Is he gonna be like, I'm gonna be, I'm a defensive guy, I'm gonna be involved in the defense and let Pete do what you gotta do on offense, bro. Just make sure we rolling. And can Pete do that? Can he handle that? I don't know. I don't doubt Pete, man, because like Pete called, Sean Payton was there, but Pete called plays in the 2011 season. Sean Payton left, got suspended in 2012, and Pete, called plays the entire season. I'm convinced Drew was like,
I was about to say, I think Drew called a lot of plays.
Drew was like, yeah, I hear you, Pete. Kill. Oh, pick 6.
Where's Jimmy at?
I think Drew threw like 23 picks that season. Like, it was crazy.
That was the Liddell Betts year. Drew had, I think, 7 picks that came off Liddell Betts' butter fucking fingers alone that year.
Liddell Betts, man. What the
him. That's where we went through the 36 running backs. I'm slightly exaggerating, but yeah, that year.
No. Oh my God.
Oh no, that was that
10. That
was 2010. You're right.
Yes.
Liddell Betts and Julius Jones.
Oh, yeah. Julius Jones.
Julius Jones. Ugh.
And they all got hurt in the Seattle playoff game. Every single one of them.
Like
everybody got hurt.
We're not gonna sidebar into Sean, but to this day, like I don't have the same irritation with Sean, partially because I'm a little cocky and a little way too self-confident, so I kind of get it. So like I can't shame Sean for like shit that I do, but one of the only things in Sean's tenure as a Saints coach that drives me batshit pissed to this day is him playing those players in week 17 against the Bucks.
Oh man!
Just because I'm like the stupid
if
12
Jimmy
shit,
Graham,
the beast quake,
none
of that crap happens if Malcolm Jenkins
Graham,
and Jimmy Graham play in that game.
And Chris Ivory.
Yeah, like
maybe he wouldn't have made it through the whole game, but
it wouldn't have mattered. Drew passed for like 500 yards in that game. Seattle didn't have a defense.
No, man. If they had Jimmy Graham,
so mad,
Malcolm Jenkins, and Chris Ivory in that game, they would have won.
Yep, I will never not be mad about. I always hold that against him. That and the Josh Hill double reverse. Those are the 2 plays I can't let go.
Good. Like, do we also? I mean, kind of let Sean off the hook. Partly the reason why Michael Thomas is hurt is that.
Hello.
I mean, that's at least for me, and I'm not making any excuses, but that is such a hindsight type analysis thing.
I mean, it is
Because
but, like,
players are on the field in those situations all the time, and we don't notice it until a guy gets hurt.
yes,
The
Man,
thing I
it
hold
was
against
late in
Sean
the game,
is
man.
it was. I'm just saying, it was like
when Mike got hurt, Sean should have forced him onto IR and made him get the surgery and made him get right immediately. That's the part I hold against Sean. Part of your job
Right,
as
I
a
mean-
coach or as a leader is to protect them from themselves.
100%.
And like for me, that's way worse than doing something they'd probably done 100 times before, and this is just the one time it went bad.
They definitely messed it up, man. They tried to force it back, and we know the history. We had Devin Bro on our podcast, a couple years ago. And he ran it down. Like Saints are horrible with injuries, bro. They are horrible.
Worst.
And I feel like after the Devin Bro situation, I feel like it got a lot better, and Sean became a lot more protecting his players as opposed to what we saw like Carolina doing with Cam.
And they started firing people.
Yeah, like they got a whole new medical team. Like I felt that Sean was more like one of the more conservative players or conservative coaches in terms of keeping players healthy. Like I think we even saw it last season with AK. Like, there were, he probably could have came back a week or two earlier, but Sean wanted to make sure he was fully healthy.
Yep.
So it's just one of those things where it's competition, and that they saw that was Drew's last year. Their window was open. They tried to force a player back that Mike for sure probably shouldn't have been forced to come back. And I would imagine to this day, like they regret that decision because now he's lost so many, almost 2 full seasons that he has not played.
And he ain't lost a paycheck, so
which is great.
I hope Mama Benson's doing really good in the stock market because Mike ain't earning none of that money right now.
Mike probably, if Mike was playing, he'll be mad. He'd be underpaid right now.
Oh, absolutely, bro.
That's a good point. That might have been a blessing in disguise.
I'm about to tell you, bro. He will want a new contract right now. I promise.
Oh yeah.
Especially if he was playing at his level, absolutely.
No question. No question.
I would pay Mike if I was another team. I would pay Mike before I would pay Tyreek Hill. Like outside of Tyreek Hill being a piece of shit.
Like in terms of like what? Because like Mike hasn't played football in like.
No, I'm saying if Mike is Mike. Like if Mike is the best version of himself, it's because Mike fits every offense and every quarterback. And
that is true.
For all the amazing plays that Tyreek Hill makes, no attention gets drawn all the time where he's lazy, lackadaisical, doesn't run the right routes, doesn't run the play all the way through. The fact that the actual chain mover on that offense was Kelsey and Mahomes' arm talent. Like, I'm not saying Tyreek didn't have an impact, but like when Mike is Mike, like, and I saw y'all both tweeted out a couple of days, like there was that tweet about Keith Kirkwood. Like Mike was so good that teams were focusing on him so much. Keith Kirkwood was getting open and making plays, and we were like, "What?" Oh,
go look. I mean, people got to go look back at the 2019 season because
it's ridiculous, bro.
It was really ridiculous. He couldn't be stopped. They call him snap ball, whatever, but like he could not be stopped.
Got the most arrogant, cocky Twitter handle on earth for a wide receiver and lived up to it.
Absolutely. We want to. I'll hit on the.
Yeah, let's talk. We're on the subject already, so let's talk offense. What do you think is what's the best case scenario in your eyes?
I'll go first because I gotta wrap things up and get out a little early. Go spend time with my daughter before she goes to bed.
No worries.
If they can be like a top 15-ish offense, with the defense playing at the level it's been able to play at the last few seasons, like they have a chance to truly make noise in the division, just in general. I think what we've already hit, like we're talking about Mike Thomas, like so we talked about it before, like he's such a factor into that equation. I think the whole thing with Alvin and the suspension, the way it seems like, is that it's going to continue to get delayed and continued in court. And if that happens, then he may not even get suspended this season. His suspension may not go until next season if the court hearings continue to be delayed. But that said, I think I appreciate the Saints for addressing needs and drafting Chris Olave. A big thing for the offense, though, is that right guard spot. We haven't made a lot of Cesar Ruiz jokes on this episode, but he's truly like one of the worst starting offensive linemen.
Basically, our content has been blocking him better than he blocks anybody in the league.
Absolutely, like it is ridiculous, and so that's what I want to see from Dennis Allen, and that's what I want to see from Coach Doug Marrone, is that when these mini camps, when this vet mini camp coming up and in training camp, are we just going to automatically see 51 at the right guard spot, or is he going to be rotating with Landon Young? Is he going to be rotating with Throckmorton and things like that? Because it has to be an open competition. If you go by the reporting that can't even think of his name right now, the one that says like he's a robot. He used to cover the Ravens. Now he used to cover the Texans, but he was doing all the reporting for Pro Football Network doing the Deshaun Watson
Aaron Wilson
shit. There you go, Aaron Wilson. Like the Saints were potentially willing to include Cesar Ruiz and like a trade for fucking Mr. 22. So
news report there is that somebody
that
wanted
made it. That made it enticing. I was like,
bro,
maybe I could forgive Deshaun. Real, bro. Fuck that shit.
That's how bad he is, and like to me, like that's not like
you tired of watching yakety sacks, huh, Ryan?
That wasn't a team going, oh, we have to give up like this good, commodity and to get this quarterback. This is like a team saying, please fucking take him off our hands. And we have seen him destroy offensive drives with just him getting beat off the line so quickly. It's just, it's unfathomable of how bad he is. And so if he doesn't improve, or two, there's not an open competition, like it can get, I'm not saying it's going to be, it's a huge thing. I will say that Doug Marrone being back, I think could work out in a good way, because he's not tied to Cesar Ruiz. Like he's an offensive line coach. And if Cesar is being trashed in practice, like it's like, nah, like I can't play him. Like get him off the field.
He looks Dennis Allen in the face and says he looks like he's playing on ice. Get him off the field.
Get him off the field. So that's a huge thing. But I think top 15 offensively is possible. But the two spots that still concerns me greatly is the backup running back position. Ryan and I talked about before, and then just the collection of just meh at tight end. Yep. Like they're like, and we're still running Sean Payton's offense that's so predicated on having a tight end that can stretch the field and run the seams. And we have Finding Nemo, Nick Vannett, and Juwan Johnson. Like that, none of that is inspiring in any type of way. And I feel like I forget like Taysom, but like Taysom has like a Liz Frank injury. Like he's not going to be back until October, November. Like, so that position concerns me. And I know people are like,
I know people poo-poo it.
They do, but I'm like, just bring Jared Cook back. Like, just bring him back. I know no one wants to hear that, but one, I want it for the chaos. Two, like it wouldn't be like terrible.
He killed Drew. That man made Drew cry.
Drew ain't here no more. So
look, we know what Jared. He's going to drop some killers. He's going to drop them. He's going to fumble some killers. We know that.
He's Finding Nemo that actually gets open.
Yeah, and like that could be.
But that makes a big difference.
It does. Like they're like as much as flack Jared Cook get in hindsight now. Like there were some plays where he made in his first 2 seasons where
Yeah,
like they were big fucking plays for the tight end position.
Oh, yeah.
So whatever. Anyway, but I think those two positions, especially backup running back, tight end position as a whole, are very important because Mark Ingram ain't got it no more. Don't want to see Tony Jones Jr. again in my life. Like I guess we're banking on like Auburn Smith, like undrafted running back from Baylor.
I do like him.
I like him too, but like banking on that to like.
Go get Darrell Williams or whatever his name is, out of the former Kansas City running back.
He's such a good signing for them, and like
he just fits.
He fits so well, and he'd be cheap. Like I don't know. So
it makes sense. So we know the Saints won't do it, but so I have a question because I agree with all of the concerns, especially about running the RB2 and tight end. But I have a question for you, how you feel about this as far as, because we know Pete's going to be running some version of Peyton's offense. He may have his own tweaks or his own preferences, and they'll of course shift. They'll shift parts of it to Jameis. I think Jameis has already come out and said like they've already had conversations about the parts that he likes, what he feels that he's better with. So like it'll go more towards him. My thing on the element of the tight end is number one, I think Jimmy Graham, those years really distort like our whole fan base expectation from the tight end position in Sean's offense because he was such an outlier. Like they won the Super Bowl with the shattered corpse of Jeremy Shockey. They really haven't had hyper productive tight end play outside of those Jimmy years. What they had was reliable, consistent guys, which we don't currently have. But the question for me is, because of the body type, because of the skill set, if Olave is what we hope and believe he will be on the outside, I think you can run Callaway on the other side and enough times throughout the game, move Mike inside and have Mike run those tight end routes and have Mike attack the seams and move the ball the same way. Not that he replaces tight end or plays tight end, but he can
Marcus Colston.
But he can create a lot of this. Exactly. Create a lot of the same impact on the defense as far as shifting play calls and creating tendencies and creating those layered effects with the routes of like, oh, you overreacted to this. Oops, double move. There he goes. Which is where Jameis shines is, oh, that guy has an inch of daylight. I have the arm to get it there. I'm going to get it there. I do think if Mike is Mike, I think that Mike is going to show up in different ways than he did with Drew. Like it's like Mike's still going to win. Like he's still going to be unguardable on slants if he's still himself. Like even if he's a diminished version of himself, if he can plant and cut, you're not guarding that. But I think he's going to be more of a 9 to 22-ish yard receiver. And I think it's going to lean more towards the further down part. Like still, I think he's going to be more in the seams simply because Jameis doesn't throw those quick breaking routes the way that Drew did, which I mean, maybe 3 quarterbacks ever do.
Even he said that he's like, he needs to work on his short intermediate.
But what he does do really well is he actually does throw intermediate routes for a little bit further down the field. But what he has the ability to do is drive it and get it in there. And with Mike's ability to create openings with his route running, if Mike is still Mike, I can actually see him operating in those areas and in more of that Colston role and having kind of the same types of numbers, but in a completely different way than he had with Drew. That's, for me, that's my optimist view of if Mike can do that and be the ultimate security blanket for the offense, you can build an offense that actually works towards Jameis's strengths. And
I want to see Alvin Kamara back in the slot, now wide.
Yeah.
In passing routes, man. Like, what happened to that? What happened?
That's what makes him special. He's Weapon X, but better.
I still want to ask Sean Payton that. Like, give me a chance to talk to Sean Payton. I want to ask him, like, why was Alvin Kamara the last 2 years used less in passing routes? I just want to know why.
You know, like the last time, and I'm going to say this before I head out. The last time we truly saw that was in the NFC Championship game in 2018, bro.
Yeah.
Like
he was tearing up. What's his name?
Oh, what's his name? The linebacker.
Yeah,
who plays for the Raiders now. Who I
was tearing him up.
Turn up to the point where fucking Wade Phillips started having the defensive lineman like bump Alvin off of routes and to slow him up in the second half, which to Wade's credit, like that was a great defensive adjustment. Don't know why Wade is unemployed right now.
Is he? I thought he got a job as like a head coach in the CSFL or something like that.
Yeah, he might know. Yeah, I'm saying, well, I don't know why Wade's employed in the NFL right now. Like Wade should be a defensive coordinator in a. But besides that game, like that game came and went. Like we'll see like the occasional like choice route here and there, and like he had one against the Pats this past season that was a touchdown, but they have just vanished, man. And I have no idea why that's gone from the offense. Maybe Sean, but I can't even use the example that Sean was like Drew couldn't get him the ball because he had Jameis last year, at least for some of the season.
Right.
So like
doing it with Jameis, yeah.
I have no clue.
I have a theory on it. Maybe we'll discuss that another time. I think AK might be its own conversation on its own of what he could be if he gets back to him. But I know you gotta go at him. So we'll wrap up here pretty short. But again, want to say big time thanks for coming on, and this has been a ton of fun. And thank God this team didn't do a bunch of stupid stuff, so we actually get to have enjoyable conversations.
They were close, but no, it was
real close.
It was close as motherfucker.
It wasn't for a lack of fucking trying. I'll tell you fucking that. Yeah, I mean, I could.
That's Mickey's MO. That's how they got Ramcheck.
It is, but it was a pleasure coming on, talking to the Saints. So thank you so much, Brian, for letting us come on and have us on. Ryan and I are actually recording the schedule release episode for the Saints Twitter podcast tomorrow evening. The schedule will be out, so the excitement of schedule being out and football being around the corner in 3+ months, we'll be here. So we're recording that tomorrow night. So if you haven't listened to the Saints Twitter podcast, check that out. But thanks so much for having me on, Brian, and thanks for all the support you've given me and Ryan in the podcast over the years. We really, really appreciate it, man.
No, man,
absolutely.
Really appreciate you, man.
And speaking of that, anybody who's watching this who isn't a patron for Saints Twitter podcast, get in there just for the Discord alone. Like the content is amazing, but really just for the Discord alone, there's some entertaining shit that happens in there. We got people like making out with catfish. It's hilarious. It's awesome. It really. It's not. It doesn't even cost a Starbucks. Get in there.
And man, come game day, that shit's gonna be lit, bro.
Yeah, like and Ryan and I have plans of we did the live stream during the draft. We don't know how it's gonna work during game day because everyone's stream and feed and games are kind of off. But we do try to plan at least for preseason. We're gonna test it out for our Patreons only of just doing like a big ass Zoom meeting that gets live streamed to YouTube. What's up of all of us watching the Saints game at the same time, just cutting up, drinking, having fun, being upset, just letting it all out. So anyway,
don't let Nat in there. He's gonna get everybody in trouble.
Fuck, you're not gonna tell us tell us the score of the game in the first quarter. That'd be better, bro. But I really appreciate you having me on, Brian. I appreciate it, man.
Always a pleasure, man. It's an open invitation. I'm sure we'll talk more.
All right, man. Y'all be good.
All right.
Peace.
So now that Batman has left the building, I'm gonna pay for that remark if he ever listens to the show, but that's fine. We'll go ahead and wrap stuff up because I know it's obviously getting late on your side, and like I said earlier, I can talk sports for hours, and No one should be subjected to the sound of my voice for that long. So we'll wrap it up. I guess the here's the last closing thought I have, again, just from the optimist point of view. And this is, I'm fully acknowledging this is a little bit out there, but if everything breaks right, which is the premise, I actually do think this is an objective possibility. I think it is possible for the Saints to make the Super Bowl. Now, that comes with a lot of caveats. Obviously, one is health. But for me, last year's Bengals run is actually a great example of how this tends to break. And it wouldn't be the 1st time that it's not just a team getting hot at the right time. It's a team with the right attributes.
Yeah.
For most of last year, the Bengals were a great offense and a mediocre to bad defense.
Yeah.
The defense clicked. They played team football. They just executed. They still weren't dominant, but they executed. They forced teams to execute consistently, and they capitalized on mistakes. And that's how they got to the Super Bowl and almost won it. They weren't a dominant defense, but they were effective. And I think the Saints can kind of do that in the reverse. I think they can have a great defense, but I do think, again, if things break right, number one, the NFC is very weak.
Yeah.
If Tom Brady loses a receiver, he's going to turn right back into a pumpkin. That happened last year. It's happened every year for the last 6 or 7, which all aging quarterbacks that happens. Loaded offense looks great. Not loaded offense. Oh, he is 49,000 years old. And Tom's always had issues with organic pressure. But like outside of them, like the NFC really, it doesn't have a lot of great teams.
I mean, to be honest, they had a path to the Super Bowl last year. Even as flawed as the Saints were.
If they'd have been healthy.
Like Saints versus Rams, even in LA, like we probably would have lost. But it wasn't like a
no. I mean, if they'd had Jameis and Mike, I'd have bet I'd have been more likely to bet money on the Saints in that game than I would the Rams.
That's what I'm saying. If they had Mike, I'm saying even without Mike, like the defense against like that offense, I had confidence in. If the defense came to play like
they can,
and we already know the Tampa Bay thing, like we already know.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I think it's a real possibility. The thing for me is it really is. I'm not actually usually the trenches guy. I fully acknowledge I don't know offensive or defensive line football nearly as well as I know some other positions. But for this particular team, I really think so much comes down to, the same way I felt the D line is so important. Adam said it earlier, that right guard position, and left tackle, but in particular, that right guard position. If they can be an effective offensive line, they're going to be able to run the ball. If they can have this offense rely heavily on play action, running the ball, and it doesn't mean be a slow ball control offense necessarily, but if they can do those things effectively and I think they're going to run a lot of boots with Jameis. Especially Jameis showed a lot more mobility than we thought he had last year.
Oh yeah.
And with his arm,
got him hurt.
Yes, well, that and a dirty motherfucker who makes out with horses.
Yeah, a dirty.
But I don't want to know what he does with those horses. But that's just wrong. I really could see, especially with some of the boot action and adding a guy like Olave, that downfield threat, having a guy like Deontay Hardy.
Oh man.
Like I could really see them being a team where the defense can really kind of take that predator position of we're just going to keep this close until we get that explosive play. Exactly. And once we get that explosive play, we're going to put pressure on you. And Mike's going to keep the offense on schedule, and AK is going to do some special AK stuff and keep the offense on schedule. And the moment you bite, the big play comes. And all of a sudden, because of the play of the defense, like we don't forget the 2015 Panthers were the #1 scoring offense in the NFL. Go back and watch that offense. It was gross. It was Cam Newton overthrowing guys and then just going, Greg Olson's out there somewhere.
Oh, yeah.
And he won an MVP, but it's because their starting field position was at the freaking 40. Like, it's such a team game. And I really believe if the offense can just stay on schedule and create those explosive plays, if they're healthy, I don't see any reason why they can't make the Super Bowl. And I honestly don't see a team. There's no team in the AFC where I go, in the right circumstances, they can't beat them. I might not bet money on it,
Yeah.
but there's no one out there that makes me go, oh yeah, they can't beat them. That you got no shot. That's barbecue chicken. You're done.
Yeah.
So it's, and I felt that way last year. I was loud last year about the team. Like, this is a bad team. They're winning games with a lot of heart and good coaching and a good defense, but this is a bad team. They should have won 4 games. I felt that the whole year. They won 9, and they fought hard for those 9. But that was a bad football team. That was a terrible offense. It was gross to watch. I don't feel that way about this roster this year. So that's me. I think best possible case, I think they could make the Super Bowl. I legitimately think this is a playoff team and a team that no one will want to play. How do you feel about that?
I agree, man. I think it's going to be. I definitely don't think teams want to play the Saints, and I think they have a shot. I don't like talking about the Super Bowl at all. I just want to see them. I want to see them start fast, bro. Like,
yeah,
that's so important, man. If they could start 2-2 or 3-1, I think that's going to be so huge. Just not only the schedule, but just the confidence
absolutely
that they're on the right track, man. So, I mean, that's what I want to see, man. I just want to have fun, bro. I want to be a fun season, man.
Amen to that. Wide receiver 3 Callaway feels so much better than wide receiver 1 Callaway.
So much better, bro. I just pray for injuries. Just,
Absolutely.
we're going to have some, but just take it easy.
I got one last quick question for you, and we're going to call this a wrap. Who forces their opponents to get called for more penalties? Michael Thomas for flexing on cornerbacks, or CD for being whatever, like popping set, whatever the hell he is saying to people to piss them off. Who draws more penalties, CD or Mike?
CD, like they made it a CD rule. They literally made a CD deuce rule, man.
I think Mike is a sneaky contender.
Yeah, it could be.
Because Mike,
he's gonna be.
He's been out for 2 years with all that penny building up. If he comes out cooking, especially Carlton Davis, if Mike cooks Carlton Davis, he might get Carlton thrown out the game.
Oh man, because Carlton Davis put the pause on week 1 2 years ago. Oh, yeah. You know what I'm saying? So
he got those Brady officials and was allowed to grab and hold.
It happens.
It does. Yeah, no, that's a the sub storylines are much more fun to pay attention to when the team is good. So fingers crossed they're there. I can't wait to see you guys break down the schedule. Can't wait to see all the great content you guys are going to put out this season. I'm sure we'll talk more. Like I said earlier, huge thank you for you guys to coming on the show. We'll definitely do this again. And with that, for anybody who made it all the way to the end, always appreciate anybody willing to, like, comment, subscribe, all the good YouTube stuff. Just helps more people see the show. You can find me on Twitter at Kira16. I don't necessarily recommend following me if you don't like somebody who can be occasionally irritating. But occasionally I have good takes.
Characters. He uses every character.
Every character.
Oh, 250 or whatever.
I send dissertations. I argue for fun. I'm that guy, so I'm not expected to build a big following necessarily here, but I appreciate everybody who watches. It was a great fun, and we're looking forward to a great season. So with that, we're gonna say who dat, and appreciate you coming on, Ryan.
Peace.